So there's a movement afoot in the states to create digital versions of our driver's licenses. And I think that there's a lot of naivete about it. People think, well, you put your credit cards in your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet. Why not let people put their driver's license in there too? Easy peasy. But that's recognized as a failure to recognize the implications of creating a digital version of your ID as opposed to something like a credit card. There's a real potential here for this to become a tracking infrastructure that allows the government to track us or allows companies to track us. I mean, imagine if you try and go online and you get the privacy policy things popping up all the time, but instead it's a pop-up that says, share your driver's license with us. Yes, no. You click no, I don't want to share my driver's license with you, with my name and address, DMV vetted date of birth, full name, height, weight, and organ donor status. So you click no, and it says, sorry, we can't allow you to access this website unless you share your identity with us. And there's a lot of reasons why websites are going to want to do this. They want to know who you are because their advertising is worth more. Their security people want to make sure you're not a hacker. They want to make sure you haven't been kicked off the site before. They want to make sure you're over 13 so they can comply with legal requirements and they can market to you. There's a bunch of reasons that, like, overnight, if this infrastructure is created, we may be dogged by demands that we provide our inescapable, locked-in, DMV vetted, cryptographically secure identity everywhere we go. And people don't always want to create a lifelong relationship with a website, which is what this does if you share your identity in this way. And so we are pushing the states to say, well, if you're going to do a digital ID, then at the very least, it should have strong privacy protections in the way that it's built as a technological matter. But we're seeing that the version that's being pushed in the states, some of them will allow the states to ping the government every time you show your ID to, a doctor's office, a liquor store, a bar, and a website, maybe an adult website, maybe another website. And all that data would flow to the government. This is not a way to design a digital ID system if we're going to have a digital ID system.
Are there states that are doing things differently, or is there a difference that you've noticed as far as, are some states doing it in a way that you do feel is a more responsible way to protect privacy than others?
Right now, probably the leading state is Utah, which has passed a law that does call for strong privacy protections in a digital identity system. They are also going at the same time proceeding forward with this regular digital driver's license that it does have the privacy problems, but a lot of people there are planning to overhaul how they do it. But we need to get lots more states on board this demand for good privacy and accessibility protections. Otherwise, this will become a bandwagon. At a certain point, all the states are going to have to be interoperable, and there's going to have to be a standard. And we don't want to get locked into an authoritarian government and corporate, spying mechanism for potentially, generations, because, it's going to be very hard to change this once it gets locked in.
And one of the questions I want to ask you is something I've heard a lot from the states that are doing programs, that they have stressed that this is an optional service that they're providing. So they really kind of lean into the fact that people don't have to do it. But I guess from your perspective, what does the future look like?
These claims that it will be optional are well and fine right now, but it doesn't take that much of being a psychic looking into the future to see a day where it's really not optional. I mean, a credit card is not optional. There's no law that says you have to own a credit card, but try, fully participating in society without one. They're gonna demand that you have a digital identity if you want to open a bank account, maybe if you want to access your social media, you want to access anything that's adult only, and that's not just pornography sites. That can be sites for people who need to want to discuss abuse in their past and get help and support, and places like that. And so we really need to make sure that if we are going to build this, it has really potentially bad implications. At the very least, it should contain all the privacy protections that we know exist out there. But what we're seeing is that they're just sort of not bothering to include them. And that's what we're trying to do, which is raise the alarm, start yelling and screaming about this and saying, like, look, we're building something that's very dangerous here for civil liberties, and you're doing it without any thoughtfulness about it.
What's the feedback been since you guys released the petition? I know that there were some like individual names on it too that either currently work for state governments, like in Utah, or former government workers. What's it been like, kind of talking to other people in this space? And then after issuing this, what have you heard?
There are some people who deeply invested in creating a digital ID. People in industry who are trying to like make money off building a digital ID who are not happy with this because it's sand in the gears. There's a lot of other people who think that it's really good that we're drawing attention to this because we need sand in the gears here. We need to slow down here and take the time to do this right. There's no big hurry, and if we rush into a suboptimal, authoritarian spying infrastructure, then it's going to have really bad effects, and it's going to be bad for ordinary people, and it's going to shift power from ordinary people to government agencies and big companies. And we shouldn't be building something like that. I will say, so the petition that we did is focused on the no phone home part, which is, if you're showing your ID to somebody, it shouldn't notify the government that you're showing your ID to them and who they are, where they are, when it is. But there are many other aspects that also need to be built in terms of privacy. There should be mechanisms to make sure that you can't be tracked across different times, by the people who are verifying your ID. And there should be ways for you to have guarantees that who's asking for your data and why they need it and what they're going to use it for, and whether they're going to use that data for other purposes. There should be a lot of sort of technological privacy protections, and there should be some policy protections. So to protect people from having every website they go to demand that they share their driver's license, their digital, cryptographically locked down digital driver's license with them. So we need both the technological protections to be built into the digital driver's license, and the no phone home is an important one, but not the only one. And we also need some policy protections if we're going to do this.
What would you say, I guess, kind of wrapping this all up, to somebody that, might be one of the projected 5 million people that are enrolled in a digital ID program? What can they do as far as trying to protect their privacy at this point?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't use a digital ID right now because none of them are very privacy protective, and we don't want to support the current standards that are being used that don't sufficiently protect privacy. The standard that's being used by most of the states was created in secret by an international committee at the International Standards Organization. We don't know what kind of authoritarian governments were in there because they won't tell us who was in the secret committee. They created this standard. That is no way. That might be fine for a standard for industrial machinery or light bulbs or something, but this is a technology that's going to alter what the internet is like, and it's going to alter the relationship between the government and governed, and between us and powerful companies. That's not something that should be created in secret. There needs to be an open process that gets input from people who represent privacy interests and represent ordinary people, and not just big companies that want to do verification and government agencies like the Department of Homeland Security.
I just wanted to ask if there's anything that I didn't ask you that you didn't get a chance to say.
For years, Americans have always been against a national identity system. It always had shades of, World War II movies where Nazi officers would say, "We want your papers, please." And it's not something that Congress would probably ever pass, but we're seeing sort of sliding into a backdoor version of the same thing that has the elements that make Americans have always opposed a national identity system. It becomes a unique identifier that allows you to be tracked across different things that you do. Instead of having one account with this website and another account with this website, it's one key to rule them all. And that is really bad for ordinary people, and really good maybe for the bottom lines of big tech companies and for government agencies that want to track everybody all the time. But it's not good for us. And I think we need to respect America's heritage of individualism and suspicion of government and big corporate power. And if we're going to build a digital identity system, build one that is built to empower us and make our lives better, and not just companies and government agencies.